We are going through the book of Revelation. We're kind of getting towards the end now. And, this was kind of my first kind of honest to goodness kind of look through Revelation with everyone. And I've done some things before with it, but it's kind of interesting seeing this. And I think the most fascinating image that we were kind of given really from 13, maybe a little bit before 13 up through about 16, was this image of these two kind of views of reality. It's kind of like two pillars of reality, and one of them is like when you first look at it, it looks like it's all this power, but when you kind of squint your eyes and look through the smoke and all of that, you see that it's like the lamb that was slain, And then the other view of it is this one that keeps trying to convince you that it's raging and it's mad and it's taking over and everyone's kind of falling into it and all of that stuff. And it seems like it's endless, but when you actually zoom out on it, you see that there's actually no power. And that's an important thing, and we're going to see that idea continue on. And so what you end up seeing is you see the Christ, you see the God who created everything, the one that redeems it, the one who's continuing to sanctify it, the Lamb that was slain, and you see that way of service and love working in the world that actually brings healing and redemption into the world. And then you see the Antichrist was the opposite of that. It's like rampant selfishness. You have the everyone is just drinking of the wine of the society there, and which is the wine of just everyone is just trying to get their nut type of thing, right? And going after all of this stuff. And I'm reminding all of this because of what we're going to do 17 again, and we're going to do 18 again. But everyone's kind of drinking that wine there and just consuming the ways of Babylon, right? Which is a common trend all through the Old Testament. Again, I'll stress, I think Israel was taken over by Babylon in the exile, and where God basically said, well, if you want to be Babylon so bad, then you can just be Babylon. If you want to be great and powerful, right? If you want to be the biggest one on the street, if you want to do all that, if that's who you really want to be the best version of it. Be Babylon, and they're taken over by Babylon, right? But there's no salvation in all that. And I think that's a good warning for us too, is that we oftentimes seek salvation in control of others. We seek salvation in wealth. We seek salvation in in all these things. We may not call it salvation, but boy, man, that's where we seek it, So, and in order to make ourselves feel better about it, and this is the most Antichrist thing that we could do, is that we'll call all of that drinking the wine of Babylon, we will call it Jesus. And we'll baptize it and say, that's the Christian way, right? And it's all this excess and all of that stuff. So, anyway, there's kind of, I think, what Revelation is kind of talking about, and leads us right into 17 and 18. So we went through most of 17 last week. Oh man, Elaine, didn't see Elaine come in. She's coming in here. She's coming in. We'll say hi to her once she fully gets in. But Elaine, if you can hear us, it's good. It's good. There she is. It's good to see you. And I missed you there because I was doing the recap. And so, but we got you in now. And so we're going to read 17, which we mainly did last week. There's some important parts in that. And then going into 18. So let's start off with reading chapter 17. All right, so let me make sure I get all my ducks in a row here first. All right, there we go. And then I hit this button, and this button, and this button, and that button, and then hit there. All right, here we go.
Then one of the 7 angels, who had the 7 bowls, came and talked with me.
Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement.
Why did you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that you saw was and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was and is not and yet is. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going to perdition. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. These will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are called chosen and faithful. The waters which you saw where the harlot sits are...
What verse are we on?
15.
Okay.
15.
All right,
15.
we'll start it back. The program isn't following it right now. Sorry, we'll continue. Uh-oh. All right, maybe it'll follow it now.
The waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot, make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind, and to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth.
Okay, all right. So 17 there. 17. I kind of found the New King James Version to be kind of confusing to me during this section. I read it again in the NIV, and it seemed a lot more clear and all that stuff. But so let's hit some of the stuff in 17 again, because I think there's some things that are really, really important that are going on here. Before I get onto my soapboxes on these things, what stood out to you as we were reading this? Anything? You want me to get on my soapbox?
7 seems to be mentioned a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot of 7s. Now, Mick, why are there a lot of 7s in 17? You talked about it last week.
Like 7 Hills of Rome. And
Yeah. It's a reference to Rome. A lot of this here, because Rome said it was founded on 7 hills. All that stuff. You have what is calling like the harlot, which would have been Roma, which is that seasoning I put on the outside of pizza. And, yeah. And so And so,
Go for it.
well, here we go. Going back into food. But so like you have all these allusions to Rome, and here at the beginning of 17, if you notice, Rome is the stuff, right? It's got that, what is it, verse 5? It has the thing, it's like, here is Babylon the Great. So you have all this references to all this Rome stuff, and then it's calling it Babylon. It's not hiding it at all. Also, notice that like she's riding this scarlet beast. Everyone is like giving things to her and all that stuff, and they're like drunk with the blood of the saints, and like all of those things. Like it looks absolutely incredible. By the end of this chapter, they're ripping themselves apart. Did you notice that? They're ripping themselves apart. This, I think, is the point that John is getting at. Like, it's like...
Evil will destroy itself.
Evil will destroy itself. Because evil only cares about itself. And usurping over oneself. We're doing 1 Corinthians right now in the church and all that stuff. This is what Paul is so concerned about. You guys are only interested in what is making you happy and doing what you want to do and seeing things through your lens, that you're willing to destroy other people and break off and say, I'm better without you, type of thing. And Paul, and that's his biggest concern, and that's so like that's his thing, and he's like, it's about realizing that Christ has brought us together, and we see that the evil will destroy itself. So the one thing, I pointed this out last week, I want to point it out again because I think it's incredibly important, is that John is seeing all of this. This is verse 6. John is seeing all this. He sees them with the drunk of the blood of the saints and all that stuff, and he marvels with great amazement. That, I think, is key, because that's a reference to 13:3, which is the chapter with the beast and all that stuff, and where it says that, and I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and the deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled at and followed the beast. The same word in Greek right there about him like being amazed and marveled. All of this stuff. It's kind of this callback. And I think what John is setting up is that, this stuff looks impressive. And it's compelling. Like this, I think whenever I hear a lot of teaching on Revelation, I don't think there's ever any sympathy in it. When people talk about it, I think this is a sympathetic, and I'm going to get what I mean by that, a sympathetic moment from John. He's like, I fell for it for a time here. I fell for it. I was like, look at this. And it calls back to when Jesus was with the disciples. Remember when they walked into Jerusalem, they're like, Jesus, what amazing buildings. And Jesus like, it's all going to go away. Like it's all going to go away. Why are you so amazed at all of this? Be amazed at all these other stuff that's happening, And so like he falls for this too. And I think that's why it's important that we see this all crumble, because we can look at the powers of the world today and we're like, oh man, I love all of this stuff, I could see it, and we can even be getting drunk ourselves on the blood of the innocent, right? We can be getting drunk ourselves on the oppression of others, The easy one to pick on is, Confederate South, Getting drunk on the oppression of others. Like the Old Testament, what's so sly, we're going to be doing 1 Kings. Well, we're going to be doing Kings, 1st, 2nd Kings, next year after Easter. And what's so sly about that is they're talking about how awesome the temple is and how big it is, but they keep peppering in this fact that they're using slave labor to build it. And so in a time where the king had to approve all of the, everything that was going on, the people writing that down, by the Spirit, we'll say, right? That they are writing it down and telling us the truth in between the lines there. That we have now become Babylon. In building the temple of God, we are using what God saved us from our ancestors in Egypt to build the temple of God. And you see all this same language coming out here in Revelation. That in John's like, looks nice. And I think that's important because I don't think we're just meant, the things that we're about to see, I don't think we're meant to just be like, oh, that's those people. I think John is calling us into ourselves and going, we have fallen for this too. We have fallen for this.
It's interesting, though, to me, James uses the word marvel.
Mm-hmm.
The NIV uses astonished, and those have different feelings to me.
Yeah.
And the marvel makes me look at it and want it, and astonished can also mean I can't believe it.
Yeah. It's the word we looked at it in Greek. I have it up. Like it has that kind of like, because look at how the angel talks about it right after, and it defines the word for you. Like, why are you in astonishment? Why are you marveling? Like, look at how terrible this is. The angel immediately calls him back to it. And so it's defining how John was looking at it. Does that make sense? You can disagree
I
too.
hear what you're saying. I'm reading.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Louise.
In verse 8, he goes to the beast that once was,
Right.
or was and once was. Again, and he's paralleling, he's also showing right there the parallel of Christ. Like
Yeah.
they want to be like Christ-like.
Yeah, you're seeing those.
Like.
You're seeing all of those things. And also that same word, remember, is there from chapter 13, that they all marveled or astonished and followed the beast. Like, so this is how John has been using this word. And John then uses it to describe himself. And the angel pulls him from it. He's like, no, don't do that. And then we see the beast going forward there. We talked about this some too, but yeah, you have the 7 heads, 7 mountains, where normally 7's a good thing. We think that's talking about Rome. We think that's, we're talking about Babylon, Rome sitting there. And it says the woman sits there, it's just like the goddess of Rome, Roma, remember the pizza seasoning. And they're, I say that for you, Meg. Yeah. And let's see here. Let's see. So let me look at okay, so was it verse 8? Verse 8, it uses that same word again. And that's what Louise was talking about. Yeah. And again, they will dwell on the earth, will marvel whose names are not written in the book of life, in the foundation of the world. The way the NIV renders it, the inhabitants of the earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world will be astonished or marvel, if it were in New King James language, when they see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and will come.
I unwittingly opposed perversion, and I'm amused that the notes persistently refer to perversion.
Yeah,
In 8, the conversation of the beast, which appears to be within its center, is a perversion on the title applied to God, Father, etc.
yeah. And so the other thing, and I don't know if John is doing this, but the marker of the gospel being proclaimed in the Gospel of Mark is being astonished. I don't know if you guys remember that or not when we went through, but that was every time you see the disciples or people around Jesus being astonished, like the microcosm of the gospel is happening around there. That's kind of the markers. That's why at the end of Mark, the women leave astonished and afraid. And so it's like it leads all the way up to like the ultimate astonishment, the ultimate noticing of the gospel, where Jesus comes back to life, comes out of the tomb, and the women are astonished, and run away. Like, it's actually really cool how that works then, I think it fits as a proper ending for it. So you have this, I don't know, what was your word that you just used? Perversion of the true Christ. And so then we start seeing, as it comes through with the woman sitting on top of all this, but it all starts going away. Do you notice that? Let's see, where I really saw it was verse 15 and 16. Oh, before I do that, I want to read 14. All right. Let's do 12, 13, and 14. So 12, the 10 horns which you saw are the 10 kings who received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for an hour as kings with the beast. And these are of one mind, and they give their power and authority to the beast. King James renders that weird, I think. They're basically, it's like these kings of the world completely willingly give their power. It's like, yeah, we'll get an alliance with you and we can just take over the world, all of that stuff. They're just all power seeking and all of that stuff is what it's saying. And then 14, and these will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them. That word overcome is incredibly important because that's the word that for every one of the churches at the beginning there, all those churches, was it 12 churches? Is that at the beginning, or is it 7? 7, yeah. I remembered it was a good number. I couldn't remember. Like that's, and so those 7 churches, they all said, but he who overcomes will prevail. And at the beginning of the book, it makes it seem like the churches are the ones that are overcoming. But as we get towards the end of Revelation and peppered in throughout it, we see that when it looks like evil is ruling and reigning, Jesus is the one that's using that word, that he is overcoming, right? And so I think he's the way we're supposed to interpret that as we read the book is that it's Jesus the one that is overcoming, right? So, but the Lamb will overcome them, for he is the Lord of Lords and all of that. He is chosen and faithful. So then we get into 15, verse 15. Then he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits, where that prostitute sits, right, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, and the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot. I guess this is what I saw. Make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind, and give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. So at the beginning of this chapter, we're introduced to Roma, right? And she's riding this great beast, the scarlet beast, right? Like over everything. And by the end of it, we see that these guys who have given all of their talents and treasures and all of that stuff to it, now have turned on it, and evil is like self-imploding on itself, and it leaves Rome as nothing, right? And so that's like what we have all kinds of phrases for this, right? Like that's the bigger they are, the harder they fall, you know? Like this is something, this idea is baked within our nature, you know? Even though we still try to become the biggest and the baddest, you know? We always want to be the biggest on the street. And yet, Revelation's like, it's gonna tear you apart. And so the whole Bible is against that. Like that you look like you want to say something.
No, I was thinking to myself, but.
Oh, Elaine wants to say something. Elaine wants to say something. Go, start talking, Elaine. Yeah.
Okay, I just have a question back on verse 12.
Yeah.
In my footnote, it says the 10 represents all the future secular enemies of the church. But what my question is, when it says the 10, then in parentheses, it says number for completeness.
Yeah.
Is 10 and 7 the same thing?
So 10, it's not the same, because
Okay.
7, and we're dealing with some weird things going on here, because there's like some established Roman tradition about sevens, you know, that they have 7 hills and all that stuff. So we're kind of mixing our guys together a little bit. 10, the way I've always interpreted 10 is it has kind of a sense of completeness, but it's different from 7. So 7 has this idea of completeness of the 7 days of creation that God rested and it made it full type of thing. 10, my understanding and kind of my different spin on it is like when you make a declarative statement and you slap an exclamation point at the end of it. You know, like that's kind of like, so I like to view 10s as kind of like exclamation points.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's a small distinction, you know, but that's how I make it make sense in my mind. I don't know if that's correct,
Okay.
but that's, I don't know, does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it does, kind of like we're finished.
Yeah. And I got there by seeing how the Bible uses the 10s all through it. So you have like the feeding of the 5,000, or we're doing all this work with like the 144,000. That's like 12 times 12 and then 10, 10, 10. Like that. That's like going over there, and it's like you're just adding doneness, exclamation points, to that idea of that. So, of done, of completeness. So it's different, but it's using similar words.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
That helped.
Yeah. That's my understanding.
My footnote says for 10, the number of kings or kingdoms designated as opposed to Israel in her past history.
Yeah.
Talking about the different kingdoms
Okay, the different kingdoms of the.
against her,
Yeah. Well, and that's going to be the thing too, is like you have the 10 kingdoms. Like it's like all the kingdoms that are around there, because they're not going to put a 7 on that, because that's not a good number. I mean, the 10 being against them isn't it's not it's 7 has like a good holy sense of completeness. And so that's good against all the other kingdoms. So my little note that I wrote to the side of this is self-destruction, that the evil will always self-destruct. And I think we see that all around us to this day, is that when systems, when ourselves and stuff like that, when people are just about being themselves and how much they can get for themselves, like it always leads to loneliness. I feel like I'm preaching all over the Bible today, But I think that's the point.
That is your job.
I know. I think that's the point of the flood story. I think that's the point of the flood story. Is that, and this is probably straight heresy, so get ready for it. But it's that so often we think that we're saved by how good we can be, right? And sometimes we think like, oh, if I can just get down to the few people that are actually righteous, then we can live holy lives in the world, right? So we're tempted to like, well, you're just a baddie, get out of my life type of thing. And I think the flood is basically like, well, God tried that. And I think that's the point of Noah coming out, because he was the one that was still righteous, right? Destroyed everything else. And Noah came out of the ark, and what does he do?
Yeah.
Immediately gets incredibly drunk and does something unspeakable in a tent with his son. Perverse, even, you could say. It doesn't say that. It doesn't speak, but our mind can go far enough, you know? And so, and I think that story is all about, no, like, do not think that you can whittle it down, because you will end up being the only sinner left. And I think that's what Revelation is saying, is that these people, they start like, well, no, I want that power. I want that. I want to be drunk on this. And they just destroy each other.
It's interesting because we're doing Isaiah and Babylon plays a role.
Oh yeah. Well, all this stuff should be sounding familiar to Isaiah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what strikes me here is with the reference to all these nations imploding on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And God uses those nations to do things, but they're being directed by God, and then they think they're doing it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get that imagery in reading these last few verses.
Oh yeah.
They thought they were great, but they didn't realize that God was using them to do something. And when God was not wanting them, they kept doing what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I just spoke in circles.
It's just the Hebrew way, and it's that's what we see with Israel too.
Yes.
That's what we see with Israel too. That's all right. More heresy for the day. The book of Joshua. It begins all that conquest narrative. You know, the way I grew up with the conquest narrative is like, oh, God was having them do all this stuff. I think it's much more in line with what Vance just talked about. You know, because at the very beginning of it, it tells us what that book is about. That they go up and they encounter this angel of the Lord, and it's like, what side are you on, us or theirs? And the angel says, neither. No, like that's, and that, I've heard so little sermons on that, because it's hard to rally a group of people around neither, you know, but that's what's going on. That's what's going on. So, all right, let's read 18, unless we have any other thoughts on 17 before we go on. 18, let's see how much time we have. We're doing good. Okay, this is mostly like a song of Babylon. Okay, here we go. Let's get to 18 here. There we go.
After these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority. And the earth was illuminated with his glory, and he cried mightily with a loud voice,
Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury.
And I heard another voice from heaven.
Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. for her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Render to her just as she rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed, mix double for her. In the measure that she glorified herself and lived luxuriously, in the same measure give her torment and sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as queen, and am no widow, and will not see sorrow. Therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine. And she will be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judges her. The kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying,
Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come.
And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen and purple, silk and scarlet, every kind of citron wood, every kind of object of ivory, every kind of object of most precious wood, bronze, iron, and marble, and cinnamon and incense, fragrant oil and frankincense, wine and oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, and bodies and souls of men. The fruit that your soul longed for has gone from you, and all the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. The merchants of these things who became rich by her will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, sailors, and as many as trade on the sea, stood at a distance and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What is like this great city? They threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea.
Thus with violence the great city Babylon shall be thrown down, and shall not be found any more. The sound of harpists, musicians, flautists, and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. No craftsman of any craft shall be found in you any more, and the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you any more. The light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more, and the voice of bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you any more. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived, and in her was found the blood of prophets and saints, and of all who were slain on the earth.
All right. Okay. All right. What stands out to you here? What stands out to you here?
Just thought it was interesting that they just don't say they're not going to buy their cargo anymore. They go into such detail, and I wonder if there's really reason for that. Do they really want you to know specifically?
It's
a reason. I mean, it gets into that.
It does get into the detail.
Purple and scarlet, and very detailed.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I'm not quite sure why, but it is like everything, but it's all kind of luxury goods too.
Laying up their treasures on earth.
Ooh, laying up treasures on earth. That's a good way of looking at it.
Matthew where it says, lay up your treasures.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, like lay up the treasures.
I consider it spiritual at all.
Yeah. And let's see, what chapter was that where we had the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? and you had the one that was carrying the scales, and so they're like weighing everything. I think we're seeing that part of that again. Like we've seen like the power of armies of all these people, of that four horsemen. And when we see this other one of the one that was like everything's just weighed out, and you're seeing the results of all of that, these things of just cold buying and selling, and like all of that with people being forgotten about, and all of that.
Rome was a seafaring mercantile.
Yeah.
They made their wealth on the sea. Hence I think the preference for the word cargo.
Yeah.
Cargo is carrying the sin.
And even today, things if they're sent by ship
Oh yeah.
or by air, and it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And more stuff comes out.
Oh yeah. I mean,
That city was destroyed, and they're all, the ones that see are looking in. It could almost feel like an atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Or something, or an earthquake.
Mhm.
It would be in it.
And think about, like they're doing all this work, and all these people are getting wealthy, but there's also a lot of people that are getting left behind too.
Sounds like politics to me.
Yeah, it does. Like this, and when you start looking at all this, it's like, ooh, all of this is just rhyming, and it's why for a long time now, like I say, we live in a Babylon now, right? Like that's why I don't like glorification of Babylon, right? Like so that's and so you see all these things, and that is it's these scales, these wealth. It also, if you want to stay in the Bible realm, it's also when Jesus turned over the tables. It's a similar story. You got to love, I think, Matthew's gospel. I think it's Matthew's gospel. What Jesus does right after he turns over all the tables, he brings all the poor and the lame into that area and heals them. Like that's like it's just right on display of what this is about. Like that's it also reminds me in all the gospels except for John, when Jesus is in that Gentile region, the Gerasenes, and the guy is filled with all the demons, and he takes a legion of demons out of the guy and throws him in the pigs, and then the pigs run crazy into the water and drown themselves, and the town hates Jesus because of this. And the big like theological thing is like, why does the town hate Jesus? It's because he took away their ability to buy and sell there. Like that, like it wasn't about this guy being healed. They would have been fine with him being hurt as long as it meant they could still get their nut, like that. That's, and so you're seeing all these biblical ideas. This is what Amos is about. Amos rails constantly. It's like, you have made the temple into this thing where you just buy and sell, and it's just become a commodity. And God doesn't care about any of that. You have left the poor and the outcast alone to die, right? And you're calling yourselves holy for doing it. Stop baptizing it in the name of Jesus. Like, oh, that's now language, and calling that holy. Like this, like there's all these things. Like it's, like what Gloria said earlier, rich get richer type of thing. I think if this was written today, that phrase would probably be in here, and there would be people 2,000 years from now like, what does that phrase mean? Like that's like having to translate that out, and so you see this all the way through. I mean, think about when the Hebrew people are taken out of Babylon, when they're taken out of Egypt and going through there, and almost immediately they melt down their wealth and begin to worship it. They make a golden calf from all the wealth that they took out of Egypt. And then they want to go back. They want to go back to Babylon. And that's the whole warning throughout the entire Bible is don't go back to Babylon. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't go back to Babylon. And because Babylon is destruction. Now, I'm going to say something here, and it's not crazy, but it's crazy theologically. Was it verse 18? And like, there's a bunch of them. There's a lot of crying.
They cried to lament.
Yep.
And lamenting. There's also, notice what it's doing. It says that she, Babylon, has deceived all these people. Remember, John was deceived for a second. The angel's like, snap out of it. Snap out of it. I don't know. I'm going to say this is probably heresy, but I'm going to say it because I think it's for the mutual edification of the group. In just a couple chapters, it starts talking about tears being dried up. Are these tears being dried up? Are the tears of even the deceived? I don't know. But as we were reading it there, I was like, especially when you realize that John was almost deceived, And then you think about the biblical narrative of Israel was deceived by Babylon. You think about Israel was wanting to go back to Egypt. You think about how, like, the disciples were deceived about and denied Jesus. This is a reoccurring theme, and it is the redemptive mark in being bigger. I don't know. I'm saying heresy right there. I just want you guys to think about it, And so.
Struck by the persistent amnesia.
Yeah.
Have you even forgotten what Egypt was like? You want to go back?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to go back?
Yeah.
This human frailty, this human flaw of not being capable of remembering how bad it was. And instead wanting to only remembering the good stuff about it and why they left in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we bring it up to present day?
Yeah. Well, I think I think it's, for many of you, I've had this conversation. The one thing that this job has taken from me is surprise. That's.
You can fix that.
Oh, yeah. Someone want to try to surprise me? But it's, what I encounter, the stories that people tell me, I'm just not surprised anymore. And that's just not surprised at any of it. And maybe that's just my heartlessness going into it. No, but I think it really comes from a place that we all struggle with stuff. We all struggle, and we all want hope, and we try to create the hope in ourselves. So we become addicted to things. We become addicted to control. We become addicted to substances. Become addicted to dopamine. We get addicted to things, and so I think that's we go back to Egypt. We go back to Babylon, and we end up. Think about someone who's addicted to substances so deep, and those things are taken away from them. Is the reaction much different than all these merchants? It's like, oh man, we've lost everything. We become addicted to wealth. We get like that. And all these things, as we were just drinking the wine, drinking that milled grapes of wrath, you know, from Babylon, and we're just all part of it. I mean, we've all taken part of it, and that's, yeah, Luis.
Maybe that part of that, where you said that we're all part of it, because they they go into detail about all that they've lost, and you got to think that that's everything, everybody's jobs, everybody's work to strive to get these things, you know. So it's, you know, everything, and except Christ. That's the part they didn't mention. You don't lose Christ there because they don't have him.
I think that's.
Sometimes I think you almost have to get down to the depths before you really say, God, I really need you.
Yeah.
You know, it took me years to get to that point in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I guess now I'm addicted to this.
Yeah.
Just build your credibility, and
You got it right.
you're happy for a while.
But it's, like I look at the last couple of verses of 18 here, and it's like, you know, you're not going to hear the voice of the bride isn't going to be in there anymore. The light isn't going to be there anymore. Your merchants were the great men of earth, for by your sorcery, all the nations were deceived. Remember, it talks about being deceived there. Interesting, right? Oh, what? I wrote a note. I can't read my note though. But
another book calls it the magic spell too. By your magic spell, all nations were led astray. So like they're just easily deceived, and even though we think we're always on the right path, I think that creeps in there. Easily deceived. Good deeds aren't always just good deeds. Good things aren't always just good. We have to keep our eyes open.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's it taking us? Is it taking us to be hot shots, or is it taking us to be servers of the Lord? You know, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think that's right. And it's like dealing with the world with humbleness. It's like, I could be wrong here. You know, like that's I could be misguided, because it's, you know, I look back at the things I thought and believed 15 years ago. They're very different from today. Not all the way different. You know, done a lot of growing up. Shoot, I believe things differently than I did 5 years ago. You know, like that's, and so like, and that's good.
Nothing is spared in terms of condemnation. Louisa's remark that good deeds as artifice. Even good deeds are not good deeds.
Yeah, not always, right?
Not completely.
Not always. Like, that's one of my favorite ideas. I don't say it much because I don't think really people think people get it, because I always laugh harder at it myself than I get laughs in church. But I'll sometimes do this thing where it's like, you watching me, God? Like I'm doing this thing. Like, you watching? You know, and it's almost like we're doing the deed to be seen. You know, like that. It's like you see, I'm you know, I'm doing, like, put a couple of points on my board.
It is a reasonable difficult topic.
Like I think, I think it's really funny, like that, because it's so real, you know, that we all kind of feel that way, and yeah, exactly. And so all the nations were deceived, and in her was found the blood of the prophets, saints, and all who were slain on them. You know, and notice this language. It keeps being, they're getting drunk off of her, and then it's also talks about blood in the same ideas. You know, there is a sacramental idea that is going on with the body of Christ and how it's functioning in the world. Like we cannot be blind to that. That's the biggest thing over the last couple of weeks. I've been like, gosh, they keep talking about blood and wine in the midst of all of this. And so like in drinking, you know, and again, we have those parallels, you know, and like the one brings life and the other one is death. And yeah. So that's cool stuff. Anyone have any thoughts as we kind of finished up 18 here?
I have a thought that is not theological, but it's intriguing to me that he keeps referencing Babylon, but he talks about the sea captains. And Babylon was nowhere near the sea.
Yeah. Well, Babylon is a
But Rome is.
idea.
I understand. But if you're writing this in book, the Romans wouldn't understand it.
Yeah.
It wasn't there. Why would it be?
And that's my original thought, what Vance is getting at, my original thought on Revelation is the reason why it's as crazy as it is because we still haven't. That there was probably written a lot less creative, more straightforward things against Rome, but I imagine the Roman officials saw those and went, we can light this on fire, you know? And I'm sure Revelation got through there. It's like, well, if you want to read that, have at it. That's craziness, you know? And so here we are. That's just a Chris Escher theory. It's correct, but you know, it you know, it could easily be wrong too, misunderstandings and this stuff.
The Roman theme persists in that it's destroying itself, getting more grandeur. Rome is being echoed here. Nero reportedly burned Rome to make it more beautiful.
Oh.
And he wasn't content with, well,
Get rid of the bad sections and all that stuff.
precisely right.
Yeah.
We have the self-emulation, the self-destruction to get even more Babylonian.
Yeah.
And in the end, we wind up with ash.
I didn't know that's why he burned it.
Yeah, he was believed to have motives to expand his own personal properties, which might sort of eminent domain.
Yeah. Cool. Like that's all right. Well, that really fits well with this. I mean, they're harming their own people so they can expand. And and you see that everywhere, and you even see it in the church. Like it's to pick on people. That's what happened to the Baptist church in Texas. Like that, it's what they were having a problem with a few years back. This is probably 10 years ago now. Is that someone would come in and become a youth leader, and then they would find out that person was doing something they shouldn't have been doing with kids. And rather than reporting them and all of that stuff, they just kind of just get out of here. Yeah, and get out of here. And so that person just moved towns and did the same cycle, and they had all these people doing it. And they never addressed like the issue. They never wanted to deal with the problem, you know. And you see this stuff happens all around us, you know, because it's easier to not deal with the problem a lot of times, you know, and so, but I think it's interesting that we're setting up, and we're just a couple that's next chapter. 19 is the final battle, and so we're getting to so we're setting up all this thing where everybody's crying. Like at all of this stuff has all come crashing down, and we're getting to the point where next chapter, Jesus is on the horse, and there's this huge battle that isn't a big battle at all, you know, and that's kind of what we end up seeing as those two parallel identities end up. Oh, we'll talk about it next week, but they end up flipping. So anyway. All right. For everyone watching on YouTube, thanks for joining us today. All right.